Hi everyone, I'm Rick Beato. In today's Everything Music, I'm going to focus on engineer mixer Randy Staub. Now, since I did my videos on Brendan O'Brien and Andy Wallace, I've been getting requests from a lot of people to do exactly what I did with them, featuring them, spotlighting them with all these different people. And one of the people that I was asked to do is Bob Rock. Well, Randy Staub engineered and mixed a bunch of Bob Rock records. I'm going to go through and I'll tell you a little bit about his career. And I know Randy Staub from working with him one time back in the early 2000s when he mixed some tracks on the first Shinedown record. I spent a week with him in Vancouver, and he was an extremely nice guy. And actually very, not at all secretive about what he did. He was very forthcoming with telling me about how he did things, and it was really cool. He was a great, great guy. Let me talk about some of his records here. I'm looking at his allmusic.com right here on my trusty old computer. It says he was an engineering assistant on Rattle and Hum, U2. I did not know that. That's pretty interesting. Don Henley, End of the Innocents, assistant engineer. Okay. First big record, though, I see Dr. Feelgood, Motley Crue. He was audio engineer on that. Then, 1991, we hit the Metallica Black Album. Now, any of you that have seen the making of the Metallica Black Album already kind of know what Randy's vibe is like. What was his nickname in that? I forget what they called him, Mr. Splice or something. But he did all the edits on tape where they would, just cut the tape. They didn't have Pro Tools then. So they would, when they do the drum parts, they do however many takes. He'd have to keep track of them. There's a great fill over here. They'd cut them up. They'd paste them on the wall. They'd put them back together. And you'd see splicing tape go by constantly. David Lee Roth, Little Ain't Enough, Motley Crue, Decade of Decadence. These are all engineering credits. Bon Jovi, Keep the Faith, Annihilator, David Bowie, Black Tie, White Noise, The Cult, and so on and so forth. Around the in 1998, you start to see his name as a mixer predominantly. He did mix. If you look at the Metallica Black record, Bob Rock is mixing with him. He pretty much predominantly became a mixer in 1998. And one of the records that he did was Silver Side Up in 2001 as a mixer. He also did the POD record Satellite, which was a really big record. I believe that he was an engineer. He was an engineer on that. He actually did not mix that. I think Chris Lord-Alge might have mixed that. Then you keep going on, some other stuff, some more. You get Theory of a Dead Man. You get more POD, Hatebreed, Tonic, more Nickelback, stuff like that. He kind of got known for mixing Nickelback records, actually, at first. And then Shinedown, he worked with Avril Lavigne, Everclear. But one of his best records that he did, the Alice in Chains record, that was called Black Gives Way to Blue, which was a Nick Raskulinecz production. And I think it's his best-sounding record that he ever mixed. It's a phenomenally good-sounding record. And that's one of the ones I want to talk about today, but we're going to kind of give an overview of kind of what some of his techniques are. So let's get into it. Okay, let's begin with what everybody wants to hear, some Metallica. Now, we're going to start with Metallica drums, okay? And I'm going to play you a drum part here. I think you'll know the song. This is Enter Sandman. Now, if you want to hear what these drums sound like individually, let's hear the kick. Now you hear there's bleed in there, but there's definitely a sample with reverb on it too, and then huge gated reverb on that. There's a really, really lot of 10K. The sample's super powerful because the hi-hat if it wasn't, that hi-hat would be all over everything. Let's hear what the room mics sound like with that. You can tell that's a huge room there. Now, if you listen to the room, hear the snares higher. So the room in the snare in the room mics is higher pitched, which makes you realize that it's a sample. Very elementary here. I think most people realize these are samples. So once again, here's the kick. It's got more low end than you think it does in the mix, though. If I go like this, though. It shrinks down a bit because of the guitars have so much power. On this song in particular, that attack that you're used to hearing, I mean, that is the Metallica sound. Okay, now I'm going to go from Enter Sandman into a couple other songs off the Black Album. Now check it out, but these are going to be full mixes because I don't have the tracks to all these. This is Enter Sandman. Now, listen to the drum sound. Now, if you'll notice that, that's a higher pitch sample. It's actually a better sound, better blend, but that's pretty much identical. A little higher pitched. No low end in this song. There's no bass in that right there. You can't hear it. It's amazing how inconsistent, actually, this was a stylistic thing with metal at the time, though, that the Black Album had more bass than most metal records had at the time, but some of the songs are really incredibly bass light. That signature sound of Metallica, though, of that kick and snare, everybody knows that. It's really never been mimicked again. And as a matter of fact, that's never been Randy's sound for his other mixes that he's done. Now, this was mixed with him and Bob. I think Bob was the one that was deciding on the sounds. And this, this particular kick and snare sound is really kind of unique to Metallica. So we all know it. Everybody knows it's samples, but nobody cares because it sounds cool. Okay, now let's talk about some modern Randy Staub mixes. Maybe not modern. These are, I guess, the most recent one that I have right here is Alice in Chains record, which is really phenomenal sounding. But I want you to pay attention. I'm going to go through 4 different tracks. I believe it's Them, Simple Plan maybe, and then Nickelback, and then Shinedown. But listen to the drum sounds. I think there was a Thornley tune in there. Anyways, you'll notice that the kick drums are identical from song to song. Okay, everybody's wondering, what is that kick sound? Well, here it is, soloed. You notice it has a lot of reverb. It's got a lot of low end on it. And it's got a lot of length. It's a big kick, a lot of low end. Now, let's listen to these songs where you can hear it. Listen. Listen to the kick in. Here's the kick. Here's the kick. That's the same kick drum in all the songs. I know because Randy actually gave me a copy. He mixed that Shinedown song. And he said, here's my samples. These are samples I've been using for, at that point, years, I guess. He started with I don't know when he started using them. They're on the Nickelback records. They're on the Alice in Chains record. They're on the Shinedown. They're on Simple Plan. They're on all these things. They're on the Thornley record. They're not on every song, but they're on most. One thing Randy doesn't do is he doesn't use the same snare sample in every song. And I remembered that he layered a couple different snares. He had, at the time, this is long before there was Trigger or any of the sample players that they have now. Trigger or any type of drum replacement programs. They did have Sound Replacer, but his engineer actually did use Sound Replacer. He had a guy that would take a square wave sample, just the first part of a square wave sample, and literally hand move everything into every sample where the beginning point of every sample was, and put the samples in. But that would be the triggering track, and it was very accurate. But he would bounce down the snares into the session, and then he would go and make sure that everyone was perfectly in phase. Randy was very particular, as all these pros are, about phase. I remember him saying that one of the first things he does is check for, he'll listen to the rack tom mic, for example, and check the phase on that particular one, because I think he thought it affected the snare drum sound, and a lot of times people would record it out of phase with the snare drum, and you wouldn't have that kind of beefy bottom end. But a few things about his mixing. So he mixed on an SSL. He had NS10 monitors. I think he had tissues over him, and then he had a subwoofer under the console. Oh, it was incredibly loud. Now, Andy Wallace, Brendan, all these guys mix incredibly loud. One of the things, you can't hear the power, and you can't hear the harshness at low volumes. That's actually the problem, because people like to turn these records up, and these guys mix for long periods of time at extremely high volumes, and in some ways they sacrifice their hearing to get these records to sound right. But most of these guys have a really high tolerance for this kind of thing. It's really remarkable that they get into their 50s and 60s, Andy Wallace, and they can still do their job incredibly well. That for some reason they it's not like their hair cells and their cochlea are any more powerful than other people's, but I think that the brain compensates for the volume of these things. And Randy told me that he would always work up to it. He would start quiet through the day, and then he'd work up to where it got really loud. And it would not bother him. And the mixes always sounded phenomenal. They really did. And when you go and listen to the guitar EQs and things, as we're going to do in some of these, on a couple of these songs here, he really nailed it, where you can really crank them up and have them sound great. Now, that being said, the Black Gives Way to Blue Alice in Chains record is one of the best sounding rock records. It's incredibly hi-fi sounding, and the guitars are recorded. Everything is recorded really spectacularly. Nick is an incredibly good engineer. So that's pretty much the case with most of these guys. Most of these guys are working on the best sounding tracks, so that I don't think you have to, they don't have to do as much. They don't have to shape the mix. They don't have to carve the guitars. They don't have to, they just have to make it punchy and fat and make sure everything is balanced, and put the effects on where they need to be put on. If you need a vocal throw or something like that, you do it. Let's go and examine a little bit more of the Metallica sounds that we have here. Okay, let's start by checking out some of the guitar sounds. You all obviously know this part. It's two guitars in stereo. Now, this guitar sound, pretty obviously active pickups, EMGs, it sounds like, because no guitar really sounds like that. That sounds like EMG pickups, active pickups on a rhythm pickup. It almost sounds like a direct guitar. super clean. It's really you just know that sound. That's the sound of that song. Let's get into some of the distortion guitar. A lot of scooped mids. Tons of top end on the guitars. Really high top end. So the guitar on the right is playing held chords. The guitar on the left is doing the muted pattern. It's actually cool because it gives a stereo sound. It's not in it's not a big mono sound with a stereo guitar. That's the right guitar in that. Now, when you do guitars like that, when you have two different things being played on two different sides, it makes the stereo image huge. Really, really cool sound. Let's listen to the bass here. Great bass sound. Super compressed. Got some grit on it. Definitely playing octaves there. Really consistently played too. Too bad that he isn't in the band anymore because Jason was a great bass player. Listen to the guitars and the bass together. It sounds like it's simply two guitars. The one guitar on one side and the other guitar, the one guitar with the held chords and the stabs, and then the other one with the chunking part. Then when we get into the chorus part, check it out. There's a clean guitar mixed in with that. Do-da. And it's put in there to give it more definition, because otherwise that riff would not have. The other guitar, listen. Same thing with the clean guitar mixed in, but then when it gets into the chorus part, get into stereo guitars. So those are completely different overdubs there, those guitar parts when they come in. I mean, they're heavily thinned out. With a sounds like a flange on it. Has no low end. It's a cool sound. That sounds like four guitars. It sounds like it's all like both sides are double tracked. It's a really. Great. Listen to it with a bass. Plays an interesting bass line here. One of the effective things in the arrangement is when they're playing this riff part. And as has a continuous eighth note bass line, really powerful. It makes that section open up a lot. If the bass was playing the identical rhythmic pattern, it wouldn't have quite the kind of forward momentum to it. Let's listen to some of the vocals here, and let's see what else we got in.
Say your prayers, little one. Don't forget my son to include everyone. I tuck you in, warm within, keep you free from sin till the Sandman he comes.
All double tracked.
Sleep with one eye open, gripping your pillow tight. Exit light, and tonight,
A lot of top end.
take my hand, we're off to Never Neverland.
It's got that harmonizer sound to it. All double track though.
Take my hand.
Here's with the harmonies.
Take my hand.
It's really cool. Nice major chord.
Take my
Minor to major there.
Take my hand. We're off to Never Neverland.
But the having those double track vocals, especially with really heavy guitar bands, is kind of crucial to making them cut through the mix. If it was a single voice, it would be very hard to cut through this din of guitars, especially when you've got those super heavy double tracked guitars on each side. To have one vocal up the center, it's hard to make it really cut through the mix. So, you scoop the mids out, which they do on there to leave room for the vocal, and double track the vocal, and then you can get it to cut through the mix.
Take my hand. We're off to Never Neverland.
Let's listen to the guitar solo. The guitar has a lot of bottom end on it. Most lead guitars do. This is a thing that I always tell people. A lot of times when you're playing solos and you're mixing them, you want to really high pass the guitar. When I say high pass, I mean take the low end off of it, especially if they're not playing in the low register, because you get a lot of just noise, essentially, a lot of air down there that's moving around that does not need to be part of the mix. And that would be something that would be filtered in the mix. A guitar sound like that would, all that bottom end would be filtered. It's actually a really cool sound, and that's a very good solo on this song. Now when we come back. Hear the top end on the bass there, it cuts through great.
If I die before, may the Lord rest.
The bass is really great.
May the Lord my soul to take. Now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the Lord my soul to keep.
Really heavily edited.
If I die before I wake,
sounds great.
pray the Lord my soul to take.
Very compressed.
Hush, little baby, don't say a word, and never mind that noise you heard.
A lot of bottom end.
It's just the beast under your bed, in your closet, in your head. Exit light. Great.
Really, really great vocal performance. I mean, that's kind of what made James Hetfield, is that sound. That is his sound. And it's really well sung, in tune. The low end is super fat. It sounds like they have he's really close to the mic, getting a lot of proximity effect on that. He's just eating the mic there. That's the only way you get that bottom end there. And it's interesting. It has a lot of chest to it that you don't hear in the vocal later on. I wonder if they might even have had a second mic on him or something to even pick that up, because it's really powerful, really deep vocal sound there. There's some really cool vocal effects here at the end that I want you to hear.
More often, never late.
That's definitely a synthesizer playing just a pedal tone there.
More often, never late.
Heavily flanged. Really heavily flanged vocal there. Definitely playing that tonic. The one low pedal note on a synth to give it just that extra kind of glue to hold it together at the end. And then here's the vocals at the very end. Let's see. Let's check them out.
Take my hand. More often, never late. Take my hand.
Really great. Really great. There's no question why that record sold however many millions of copies and had so many hits on it. If you watch the making of the album too, one thing that you'll notice is that James and Lars had the songs put together beforehand. I think that was you'll notice when they're out tracking in the drum room and he's singing the vocals along the scratch vocals, he has the parts worked out. I mean, the songs were really written, at least from the video, when they were tracking the record. They knew what they wanted to do. They were pretty solid on the songs, and that's a real pro band right there. And that's no surprise that record was so big. There are some great records to talk about in regards to Randy's mixing. One of them I said was the Alice in Chains record, Black Gives Way to Blue. There's also the Thornley record that he did, and I think it was the first Thornley solo record, but there's incredible sounds and incredible mixes on that. I don't want to give you the impression that Randy uses the same kick sample for everything, but he uses it a lot. But definitely in the snare department, he's not one of these people that will use the same snare. He will use different snare samples or not use snare samples. It really kind of depends on the song. He's kind of a song-by-song guy, and I think that's why he's been a really great mixer. He's got great taste. His low end, like most mixers, he had told me about this, that either the kick drum or the bass guitar is going to occupy the low end. It's going to be one or the other. And I think that that's stylistically what most mixers do. It's hard to make both really big. He does a great job because he's got big low end and he's got a lot of low end in his kicks. Guys like Chad Blake, same thing, or Andy Wallace, but Chad Blake has massively big kick drums and then really big low end in the bass as well. We're going to talk about Chad at another episode. Anyways, there's one thing that he told me about that he did with the guitars. There's a company called SRS Labs that made a box called a Wow Thing, and it was a 3D spatial something that would turn your headphones into make things sound more stereoized. And he used this on guitars to make them sound a lot wider than they would be in the mix. That was it did something with phasing that made them kind of just expand. A lot of people do this, actually. That's not an uncommon thing, but this particular thing, at the time you could find it for $10, $20 or something on eBay. The Wow Thing, it was called. So that was one thing in particular. When you hear his guitars and you hear that wide sound, He used this. He had been using it for years. But there's a lot of really great mixed records of Randy's out there. I'd go check All Music and look at some of the records that he's mixed. There's a lot of really great records that he was the engineer on as well. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'm Rick Beato. Please follow me here, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and to my Facebook page at the links provided below. Also, my Patreon feed. If you want to get PDFs of things, if you want to get files from some of these Pro Tools sessions, you can do it through there or by writing to me at my email in the link provided below. Thanks a lot.